Yeah, so. Hell yeah. Wilmington's a place to be somebody.
It really is.
Shout out. Pat, what episode are we at? 49? Awesome. Sweet. So, hey, y'all.
What's the rule in cussing?
Cussing is cool.
Just in
and then
case.
Pat has yeah. So you're allowed to curse. And then there's really no rules sort of deal. So like if you go off on a tangent, you're like, yo, cut that. Like we'll just Pat's got full editing capabilities, so he can cut it and everything. So so we just get after it, have a good time. So I'll do a little intro. I'll give you your flowers at the beginning, and then we'll just chop it up and have a conversation. So sweet. So hey y'all, welcome back to another exciting episode of Life on the Ave. This is episode 49, kicking it with our theme of the year so far has been Del-lebrities, so local Delaware celebrities. We like to interview, faces in the crowd, local entrepreneurs, people who are movers and shakers, and that's the epitome. That's the definition of Rob Snowberger right there. So congratulations, sir. You're a Del-lebrity.
I love it.
Yeah, sweet. So Robert Snowberger, co-founder of 9SDC, 9th Street Development Company, which is a team of creative-driven developers focused on unifying, and elevating communities. 9SDC specializes in multifamily, mixed-use, historic renovations, and ground-up construction. Rob is responsible for overseeing acquisition, development, and financing for the team, and he has expertise in utilizing federal and state historic tax credits and various grant programs. Prior to co-founding 9SDC, Robert was formerly the VP of Development for the Buccini Poland Group, managing over $200 million worth of real estate development projects in Wilmington, Delaware. Robert is a combat veteran, having served 6 years as a Navy SEAL. Thank you for your service. He left as a lieutenant after deploying twice in Iraq with SEAL Team 3. Robert received his MBA from the Wharton School of Business. Rob is the father of 3 and has lived in Wilmington area for most of his life. He is also a co-founder of Stitch House, a local brewery here in downtown Wilmington, as well as The Post, which is getting ready to open right here in the 40 acres later this summer. So, Rob, how we doing, sir?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thrilled to be here. You guys are crushing it, and it's been fun to watch this podcast, and here I am. So
nice. Yeah. I'll give a shout out to you. You are definitely on our first hit list of guys to get on the podcast. So I appreciate you coming in.
Big high expectations. Gotta love it. Hopefully I have something interesting to say.
Yeah. So I've known Rob for going on 6-7 years now. So we first met working out at Black Ops Fitness, and then we got together. As anyone who lived in the Delaware area, you're one connection away from literally everybody else in the state.
Yeah.
So this is something special for me. So I'm super duper excited about this. So let's start with the roots. So you're a local Wilmington guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I born at Christiana Hospital and grew up. My house is on Gilpin Avenue, right where Gilpin and Woodlawn meet, by Highlands Elementary. My mom, when my mom and dad divorced, she moved over by Haynes Park, where Wilmington Brew Works is. Mm-hmm. So I split time between this neighborhood and Haynes Park area, PS DuPont area. So I grew up here, went to AI, as the standard high school question.
How many state championships? Did you win any state championships?
I didn't win any state championships.
That's the next question I always ask everybody.
No, I freshman year I did football, and then wrestling, and then baseball, and then I kept wrestling, but the other two in a way. AI, you got the band, or at least a lot of us at AI went back in the day were in the marching band because it
really
traveled all over the world. Oh yeah, the AI band used to be crazy. There was 200 people. It was hard for the football team though because they didn't let you just play JV. You either, after freshman football, you either had to choose varsity or the band, and I was one who chose the band. And I remember it was actually Tom Hogan, God rest his soul, and he's such a great guy. He was like, "You're gonna have to tell your grandkids that you picked the band over football." I was like, I think the band's going to London this year. So anyway, but he was also my wrestling coach, just a true badass, Tom Hogan. So.
Love it. Yeah. That band football dilemma seems like a big one for you, right? We're still thinking about it 20 years later. For the rest of my life,
you wouldn't assume band, but I played the drums. I didn't play the flute. It was.
Oh, nice. Drumline guy.
Yeah. It was really, really fun. And, Yeah, we did travel all over the place, and I think times have changed and all that, but there's probably a few people who watch this podcast who will remember the greatness of the AI marching band.
That's
Paul
hilarious.
Peretz, the teacher.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. So AI DuPont, where did you go to college? So we got your MBA, Wharton School of Business.
I went to George Washington University in D.C. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, hence the SEALs. But it's very tough to get in there, so I didn't get in. And my parents said, we can either help you with 4 years of UD in-state tuition, or you can go somewhere else and you figure it out. So Navy ROTC was available. So got into George Washington and got into the ROTC program. Not scholarship to start, but ended up getting a scholarship for my sophomore, junior, and senior year. But yeah, so George Washington is right there in D.C., like right next to the White House. Amazing experience.
Yeah, that's wild. So it feels like, the Navy thing, was it always a SEAL thing or like a Navy thing?
No, well, so my honestly, so
because I feel like the SEALs have gotten like super duper popular.
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah, we used to be the moniker for the SEALs used to be the silent professionals. I don't think that's really the case anymore. But in any event, no, it was my interest in the military in general started when the AI middle school, because I went to AI middle school too. There was a teacher who took Mr. Cheeseman, who took a trip every 8th grade class. You could go overseas, and some years you'd go to Russia, some years you'd go to Germany. The year I was in 8th grade, we went to France, and we went to the Normandy beach where the U.S. cemetery was for those who stormed D-Day Beach. This was at the same time Saving Private Ryan, the movie, came out.
Yeah.
And my grandfather had fought on Omaha Beach, Red, and stayed the duration of World War II. So he landed on D-Day Beach and stayed to the end of the war in the Army.
Awesome.
So I was going to the cemetery, which is breathtaking, and just you can't be an American or anyone really and not look out over all those graves and be completely touched with, defeating evil in the world is a real thing.
Yeah,
and it costs lives and it's sacrifice. And everyone thinks that the French are always like, screw America, right? But not in that town, man. Those people are so thankful for what the Americans sacrificed. So you had, 8th grade me taking that trip, knowing my grandfather had done it. My grandfather never opened up to anyone about his military experience. And then you have Saving Private Ryan, which was, this big budget, crazy film that just shows you in vivid detail.
Yeah.
And when I came back from that trip, my grandfather opened up to me about his World War II experience. And I was the first one he ever talked to about it because I was so interested and I had just been there. And from that moment, I knew I wanted to serve. And then I think really what kicked it over the line for the SEAL teams was 9/11 happened when I was a junior in high school. So it was like the perfect time to figure out what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
And so I already knew I wanted to serve. I was already interested in Naval Academy. Probably wasn't going to get in because I got arrested for, marijuana and fighting at Lumps Pond. So luckily I don't think I'd really make it to the Naval Academy. But, but 9/11 happened and you just realize nation gets punched in the face. Like I want to do something impactful. And so I didn't know how to become a Navy SEAL. I didn't know what the process was. But I knew that I needed to pay for college, and I knew that I wanted to go to the Navy, so I did Navy ROTC and just learned. They're like, "Yeah, we'll give you a chance. Probably won't make it, but we'll give you a chance. If you want to go to SEAL training, you can go, but you probably won't make it." So I was very fortunate. It's a little bit different as an officer to get into there, but I was lucky to get in. Went to Buds right after college, and thank God I made it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. And just going back, because hearing you tell that story, harkens back to my upbringing. I was in 3rd grade when 9/11 happened, and I have a brother right around your age, and my parents were like, he's going to go to war. I'm like, what is happening? What?
Right.
Yeah. And then when I was in high school, talking about your time and stuff like that, that was, it was the Arab, spring and summer was kind of popping off. My senior year, we got Osama, and I was I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. Like Naval Academy was lightly recruiting me in football,
Nice.
maybe
See?
a little bit in lacrosse
Beast.
sort of deal. So
Total beast, yeah.
yeah. So I don't have many regrets in my life, but my one regret is that I wish I would have done some military service. My grandfather was enlisted USMC, 27 years. He was a gunny sergeant. He trained officers. So my dad was born in Quantico. Both my aunts were born in Beaufort at Paris Island.
That's amazing. I didn't know that, Vince. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So like the Marine Corps blood definitely runs deep. You know, I wish that, you know, I would have, you know, possibly served. And I was like even contemplating all the way up until 28. I think 28 you age out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I meet a lot of folks who, you know, are thankful for my service, and it's always amazing. And, you know, a lot of folks say, you know, I wish I would have served, you know, I thought about it. And what I always tell them is like, first of all, you're serving in the way that you're supposed to be serving. And like I said, you know, 9/11 happened at the perfect pivotal moment for me to choose what I want to do with my life, which is why I chose that route. You know, I don't know if that would have been the same choice depending on, you know, if that was not like I was an able-bodied military-age male at the time, you know what I mean? And also don't forget too, like I've been to a few retirement, you know, a bunch of retirements for SEALs who put 20 years in the SEAL teams and never saw combat. Yeah. Like they wanted to see combat. They joined, they became a Navy SEAL to go to combat. It just, the assignments they got and the places that they went weren't to be a combat route. So, you know, so it's to serve is to one thing, to volunteer and all that and go. The number one thing is people just being appreciative of it, which is amazing because the guys who went to Vietnam didn't get that when they came back. And so just, you know, we as a country, you know, warfare is going to become a whole lot less people intensive as the drones start doing it all.
Yes.
So, you know, so the appreciation, serving your community and supporting those who are still over in the fight and the families of those who lost somebody over there is all the service that you need, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just funny sidebar note. This is just for my family, but yeah, my aunt and her ex-husband, they had the same thing as well too. She saw wartime combat on the USS Comfort, and her husband didn't. Yeah, she was always joking with him, like, "Hey, I actually got some action."
That's right. Yeah. No, it is like, you know, it's crazy to say, and people who are completely averse and don't have the call or you have never thought about serving might not get the craziness of like wanting to actually go and serve in that way. But yeah, it's honestly luck of the draw. I mean, you could join at a really hot time. There's people who've been in the service who probably think I'm crazy because all they knew was combat from the day they got out of boot camp to the day they left. And that was just their tour. That's the way it was. But, you know, like anything else, it's providence. You know, what God has for you is going to happen. And so I really appreciate, you know, the being appreciative of service members, and thank you for your family service. It's pretty amazing.
Appreciate that.
I love that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, so you go GW right into buds.
Yeah. So as an officer going in, so you can, there's, you know, for people who don't know much about the military, there's the officers, and then there's the enlisted. The enlisted guys are the true warriors, the ones who can sign on the dotted line after 18 years old, coming out of high school, go to boot camp. And then there's officers who typically, as in tradition anyway, have a college degree, although most enlisted SEALs have college degrees, but traditionally have a college degree, and I've been commissioned as an officer in the military. And, you know, they're the ones that get called sir and ma'am and get saluted and all that stuff. But your job is mainly as a manager, you know, of troops and keeping the mission and the strategy, whereas the enlisted guys are the ones that are actually doing the real door kicking and fighting and all that. But in the SEAL teams, it's all blended, of course. Yeah. So I was an ROTC, and I think at the time every year there was 18 slots for academy grads to go to buds, 15 for ROTC ROTC graduates to go to buds, and then there was like 2 a year from OCS. OCS is the way that if you want to be a military officer, but you didn't do it while you were in college, but you have a college degree, you can go through OCS, which is Officer Candidate School, and I forget how long it is, but you can become an officer that way. Those are the 3 ways you get commissioned. You go to the academy, you do ROTC, you do OCS, or you get promoted from as an enlisted guy, which is rare. But that's how many go to bud. So, you know, roughly 25, 30 30 people a year going to Buds as an officer. So I was fortunate enough to make the cut and go straight from college to Buds. Class 267, we started with
Nice.
225 candidates, and we ended up graduating 29.
That's that's wild. Yeah. And now, like, what I was kind of hinting at earlier is like, there's so much out there about, the SEAL culture and, Buds and all that jazz and stuff, like with, famous SEALs, Jocko, Goggins, yeah, those guys. The one thing that kind of like opened up my eyes to it, I have a couple high school teammates who are SEALs. And then we have a couple other Wilmington guys who are SEALs. Shout out Chris Haggerty and Zach Flowers. Jocko, I think he explained it one time. He's like, the guys who make it through, like, they're not the high performance vehicles. They're the 4x4s who can just go.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So what kind of 4x4 are you?
Well, now that I'm now a truck guy, so I got a Silverado. So I think I'm a Chevy Silverado. But no, it's Jocko is right, and I had the great fortune of training under Jocko. He was head of what's called TRADET, which is training detachment. It's the group that trains all the SEALs. So before you go overseas as a SEAL platoon, Jocko and his team of cadre have to qualify you to say, yeah, these guys are ready to go fight. And it's a 20-person unit is a platoon. And then you have a task unit, which is 2 platoons. So I was in the same task unit that Jocko was in when he was in Ramadi and made his famous deployment.
Was that Bruiser? Task Unit Bruiser?
Task Unit Bruiser. There's
see, it's out there now. People know.
Yep. So that's Chris Kyle. So American Sniper, Jocko Willink, Leif Babin, Mark Lee. I mean, it was just the amount of guys. Mike Mansour jumped on a grenade, has a U.S. destroyer named after him. An insane deployment to Ramadi in Iraq under Jocko's leadership. And I had the great fortune of joining that task unit. So I spent my time with Task Unit Bruiser in as the assistant officer in charge, the AOIC, basically the number 2 in the platoon in Fallujah with Delta Platoon. So we trained under Jocko, which is awesome, and you're right. He's got it right, which is, people think, I show up to Buds and there's guys who look like Jean-Claude Van Damme and, we're awesome.
Yeah, he talks about like the guys like hey, like you can't just be like a sprinter. Like you can't be a Lamborghini and go for, 10 seconds.
Exactly. If you need 10 hours of sleep at night, protein shakes, and you need all sorts of stuff to look like an Adonis in the gym, you're probably not going to make it through Buds. If you're like me, who's clearly no physical specimen, but you just won't quit, their whole purpose is trying to get you to say, I will die before I quit. And that's the kind of guys they want on the team, because those are the kind of guys who will carry out the missions that need to be carried out. They always do that, even in the second hardest part of training. The first well-known part is Hell Week, where you're, up for an entire week getting crushed. The second hardest part about Buds is a pool comp, where it's a 20-minute underwater fight where you get the shit beat out of you in a pool.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the training, because it's military, there has to be a point to the training. It can't just be getting your ass beat underwater for 20 minutes, is they're training you that when you are going to die under the water, when you're telling yourself, I'm going to die if I don't go to the surface, that is when it is okay to go to the surface to survive. But the point of the training is to push you to that point.
Yeah.
And the way they do that is they have 2 instructors come down. You have 2 air tanks on your back, and they say crawl. So not crawl, but they're crawl. So you start crawling on the bottom of the pool, and then they come down and they attack you. They punch you in the face. They take your regulator off. They tie it in knots and all this other stuff. And they do that for 20 minutes. And your job is to calmly, when they stop attacking you, put your stuff back on, retrace your, get your air back, follow the instructions they've given you for how to make sure you got all your stuff, and keep crawling. And then they'll keep attacking and keep attacking. You don't have a watch. You also have, your mind's on too many things. You have no idea when 20 minutes is up. So you don't know when it's over. What happens is the instructors tie what's called the whammy knot, which is a knot that you're not supposed to be able to untie. And your job, you know that your time under the water is over and you've completed the evolution when the whammy knot is tied and you make the determination that you cannot get it untied and you will die if you're underwater. So that is the point at which you go like this and you come to the surface and you breach the surface and you say, I feel fine. And at that point, they tell you whether or not what you just made the decision on was the whammy knot or not. They tell you, yes, that was the whammy knot, you passed. Or they say, nope, you could have untied that, you failed. And you can only get 4 times to pass until you get rolled. So bottom line is Jocko's right. It's about the guys who will die before they'll quit. And that seems very dramatic. For me, it was, your name is on your helmet. You wear helmets there. And when you quit, you have to put your helmet down in the quitter pile. It's basically this long line next to the bell. And I just couldn't see putting my grandfather's name in that pile. I just couldn't see it. So that's it wasn't like I'm going to die before I quit. It was like I'm not putting my family, my grandfather's name who stormed D-Day Beach in that pile with the quitter.
That's badass. Yeah. And then going back to like some SEALs who made it famous. So and we're gonna transition into some of your business stuff, because this is where I like really saw a connection in learning about you. Is like I read a book where you're one of the characters in there. So good friend Remy Adelike, I believe is the name.
Yeah.
And book is called Relentless or something like that.
Transformed.
Yeah, Transformed. And there's some pictures of you guys in there, and you and Remy both had the same job in there. And I was like, well, this is what Snow's doing today. Like, of course he's so good at it because he was doing it in other countries. So what was like that role that you had? Because I think it's probably the most badass thing going on in the military.
Remy's awesome, by the way. He's just a true success story. His family is actually from Africa, from Nigeria. His father was killed. They were in some sort of higher echelon in society. Came over to the Bronx in New York and grew up. Right, maybe it was Queens, and grew up in the hood. And his story is amazing. That book's incredible. And to see that he actually went to Buds a few different times before he passed and became a SEAL. He was a medic in the Navy and finally made it to be the SEAL team. So I had the great pleasure and honor to serve with him and become good friends. He also was one who helped me come to faith, and was also the resident pastor in Delta Platoon.
That's awesome.
In Fallujah. So he wrote a book, and what Vince is referring to is, I'm in the picture in the center of the book where the pictures are, and then a few times I'm referred to as the snowman making calls from the RG-33 before hopping out on a mission. And my job was, as I said, I was an officer. But I also, all SEALs always have a specialty, even if you're an officer. It's just officers don't usually get the cool ones, like sniper or breacher or any of these really cool ones. So mine was human intelligence. So I was the guy who always talked to the potential targets, or not the potential target. I put together target packages based on conversations with folks. So usually the way that happens is I talk to folks and have people, talk to the police, talk to other people around town. And then we have what's called SIGINT, which is signals intelligence, which is cell phones, cell towers, GPS trackers. And when SIGINT and human intelligence cross, you got a target. Yep. That's somebody you got to go get. So my job was to do the human intelligence side and put it together. So I was usually instrumental in figuring out the plan to go get somebody. And so that's when Remy's talking about it was I was making the call. The other AOIC in the platoon, you're either combat leader or mobility leader. And if you're a mobility leader, your job is to get to the target, surround the target, and protect outwards from things coming in. And if you're an assault force commander, your job is to everything from the perimeter facing inward to your target. So we got opportunities to do both every other mission.
Yeah. And like what like really struck me in like translating it into like you know, a real estate sense sort of deal is like you as the human intelligence, like you're over there with a translator having conversations, secret rooms, like these people got to be protected. Like they're putting their lives on.
Maybe to develop West Center City, Wilmington. Yeah.
Yeah. But that like whole, just like being able, cause Remy talks about like how he like loved like his translator and stuff and the, you know, the people, the allies, you know, kind of behind the enemy lines, like those are the, in my opinion, like the true heroes. Like, hey, you know, Osama's in this house. Like, this is what it's going to look like, sort of deal. Like, if this gets out, I'm gone. Sort of deal. And like, just reading that and just being like, fuck, this is Robert Snowberger doing this. Like, this guy was raised on the same streets where I'm raising my kids right now. Like, holy smokes! Yeah.
It is fascinating. You know, it is fascinating because, you know, most people don't even think about that. They just think about serving, and I'm going to learn to shoot, and I'm going to learn to work with a platoon. But there's a whole lot that goes into figuring out what the military is supposed to be doing, what targets are there. You know, how do we do this whole thing where we, you know, actually do some good on the ground. You know, it's one thing if we were just going in, I don't know, like the Russians or whoever, just decimate a place and move on. The U.S. doesn't do that, or at least we don't want to. We want to actually like stabilize the area. And so, yeah, I never really thought about it, but yeah, that actually has a lot of
it's like a huge crossover. Yeah. And like one thing I always tell people, like if they talk about, you know, oh, like this is a great war movie sort of deal, I'm like, hey, look, there's a documentary out. One of my high school lacrosse coaches, he made us watch it. He was also our math teacher, so he made all of his classes watch it. Restrepo. Like Restrepo, like what really struck me there was like the new commander comes in and he's like, hey guys, I'm the new guy. The old guy, we're sorry about that. We're sorry we shot your cows. Like, and like that's the issues that you guys are dealing with. To like, hey, you got to become allies with these people, and you got to learn who, you know, the good people are. And it's the same thing we do here, sort of deal. Like a lot of people wonder, like, hey Vince, like, what do you actually do? I'm like, I'm a connector. Like I know the guy to get to this guy. I'm like friends on both sides. Like I'm going to put these two parties together, and that's our target. That's where we're going to cross. And like, hey, we need to go after, you know, this building.
No, that's 100% right. And it's because Remy is a guy with two specialties. He was a medic and he was human intelligence. That's just how badass Remy is. But yeah, so I mean, our job was essentially to, you know, he had his sources, I had my sources. We would do a lot of report writing at night, but then you'd read a lot of reports and you'd find where they cross, and you find like you paint a picture of the town. It's actually called IPB, which stands for Intelligence Preparation of the Battle Space. And I actually find that this is a lot of crossover and connective tissue between doing that and the real estate, especially because, you know, it's one thing to be a real estate developer and, you know, sit out at the country club and find deals and fight for them with other rich people and bid yourselves up and then do the projects. Like there's tons of that stuff. But Wilmington, or at least Delawareans, as a celebrity or Delaware celebrity, you know, I guess why I'm recognized as that or honored with that title is because I care about actually like making a difference and helping to transform this city. We all love it so much, obviously. People who leave Delaware always end up coming back. You know, I went to San Diego, came back with my wife from San Diego, and so you know, you want to listen to the people in the community, find out what they want, make sure that the development that you're doing is something that's wanted and will help, and then hopefully the folks who own property in those neighborhoods and have been there for years, their generational wealth is tied up into these properties that they own. You know, hopefully their net worth goes up, right? And they've been sitting there in these bad neighborhoods, you know, drowning in crime forever. If our projects can help to boost the area value, and then these families who've owned these homes can find some more value in their investment they've made, you know, it's a real honor to be a part of that.
Yeah. This is a shout out to my high school lacrosse coach, Travis Loving. He loves to tell his story. So he definitely had a chip on his shoulder, went out, partied, came back late. Like they all got like written up sort of deal. And like he like mouthed back to the guy, was like, "Are you fucking serious? Like you were in here like playing lacrosse, blah, blah, blah." Long story short, he gets diabetes. So when he graduates, like he goes up to like, I guess like sign out for his thing. And they're like, "Hey, what are you graduating at?" And it's the guy who wrote him up. And he's like, "A civilian." He's like, "You're not a civilian." He goes, "I'm a civilian, motherfucker." Like he's like, "I got diabetes. I'm getting the fuck out of here." But like he still like is like super proud of America, his army time sort of deal. And he made us watch Restrepo, and I'm 18 years old watching Restrepo December of my senior year, and I'm like, this is wild. And then spring of my senior year, Osama gets got, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, so it's just like, and just that intelligence now, like you can go down rabbit holes on TikTok and stuff, and I'm not sure if he's respected, but like the one dude, I guess he's like really mouthing off about the Osama stuff. Like, I don't know if the SEAL community respects him, but I don't know, right? Yeah.
No, it's
but just like listening to that stuff is badass, and then reading the book, I'm like, yeah, this really translates.
No, the Navy, you know, whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but the Navy actually was the one who opened the door to SEALs starting to tell the world the story, and it's because the Navy wanted more SEALs. They always want more SEALs, especially when we had 2 wars, Afghanistan and Iraq. I never served in Afghanistan, but I did 2 tours in Iraq. But the Navy wanted more SEALs to do more operations, because if we had more SEALs, you could do more stuff, and you know the war effort would go better. But you can't make more SEALs unless you make the SEAL training the training easier, or hopefully you find, you know, better
more people
stock, I guess, to come through the door, so you have more graduates of the tough training. And there's always been this interplay between that. There's been plenty of admirals and captains who want to make training easier just to make themselves look good. But luckily, the instructor class won't let that happen.
Nice.
So there's always a joke, like last hard class. Like, you know, if someone's in like says they're in 270, I was like, oh, well, 267 was the last hard class. You know, it's always what you say. But yeah, so the Navy, in trying to get to the right folks to start SEAL training and get more SEALs out, they made the movie Act of Valor. That's one of the movies. It's actually paid for by the Navy. The real actors, or the actors that are playing the roles, are actual SEALs, active duty SEALs at the time. I think Lieutenant Denver was is the main character. He was my second phase in OIC of second phase in Buds. Weimholt is in there. Chief Weimholt, he was a chief of our task unit, is in the movie as a SEAL. So the Navy paid for a director in Hollywood to get SEALs, to play SEALs in a movie paid for by the Navy to boost recruitment. And once you have these cameras all around SEAL training and all around, you know, and actual SEALs participating in it, you know, you kind of open the door to tell SEALs like, hey, your story is, you know, worth telling to the world, as opposed to what we used to be, which was, you don't talk about anything. You just go do the job, keep it quiet.
Yeah.
So, you know, so it's like anything else. It just opens itself up.
It's badass. It's badass. Yeah. So you come back, and we have a couple of, you know, different things you get into. I think you did them simultaneously. So you come back and you're like, hey, I'm done with SEALs. Like, did 6 years. Like that was kind of it, sort of deal. And then Penn.
Yeah, no.
AI DuPont to UPenn Wharton School of Business. Dude.
It's one leads to the other.
And a White House fellow, right?
No, I worked for the Senate. I was a Senate intern, and then got hired by Senator Carper, which was he's an incredible man, and that office is incredible. He really is a true.
So you did this all post SEALs?
No, so the internship with the Senate was before the SEALs. I was a junior and a freshman and sophomore at GW, and Senator Carper has an office. At the time, Senator Biden did as well, you know, on Capitol Hill. And so I showed up as a Delawarean in DC, like, hey, can I intern? And he said, you know, gave me a shot, and it was really fun. You do Capitol tours, you answer correspondence from constituents. And I actually got hired as a staff assistant, which was the lowest level in the office. But interns are unpaid. Staff assistants at least get a little salary. So I was happy to get a little salary. But yeah, so getting out of the Navy, that was, you know, your other question was, my wife, I wanted to serve 9/11, you know, all that. And I did 2 tours. And by the end of it, it seemed, at least at the time, you know, the State Department was starting to take over there. It seemed like the op tempo of what SEALs were doing was going down. And so, you know, it's also after 2 combat tours as an officer, you do what's called a shore tour, which means you do something non-combat related. So I went to this group called Support Activity One, and around the same time, my wife was like, "This is actually kind of a funny story." Was like, she didn't want to be a military wife, and I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be a career. So it seemed like a natural time to get out.
Yeah.
But ironically, I got orders to Guam for my shore tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at my girlfriend at the time, who's not my wife, and I said, "Oh, like we'll stay together if I go to Guam, right?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Okay, so how do I change this? What do I do? It's the Navy. How do you change your assignment?" And I heard about the there's a SEAL detailer is the name of the officer in the Pentagon who assigns where SEAL officers go next. And he has a secretary, and her name's Margaret. And she's world famous apparently for being able to be swayed to put your name in certain assignments or not. And so I was like, I got to get to Margaret. I got to beg her to keep me with my girlfriend and all that. And so I actually, at the time, the AOIC of Charlie Platoon, so I was Delta Platoon, Charlie Platoon, we both together were Task Unit Bruiser, was Dan Crenshaw, who's now a congressman. He's the guy with the eye patch. From Houston, good friend of mine. He and I found a school in the Washington, D.C. area, civil affairs or something, convinced SEAL Team 3 to pay for us to go get that training. So we show up in D.C., we go to maybe, an hour worth of training, meet the civil affairs guys. They're really cool. They're like, just go kick off for the week. Like, you're not going to learn anything here. So we were like, cool. So I found my way to the Pentagon. I brought a bouquet of flowers for Margaret Fuller.
Nice.
I guess I shouldn't say her last name, for Margaret, and I handed him to her, and I said, "Please don't send me to Guam." Like, so she changed my assignment to support activity in San Diego, so I got to stay. But
nice.
Bottom line is, after that, my wife said, I said I'll get out for you, and I'll get out because I didn't know if I want to make this a career, but I don't want them to do, so I'm gonna apply to business schools, and the best one that I get into, you got to come with me. And she said, okay, and I got into Wharton, which is right up the street, so I was like, perfect way to get back, get a great education, and then come back home.
Love it. Is your wife Carrie? Is she a local Wilmington girl or no?
No, she's from San Diego. So I met her at the Tavern in Pacific Beach.
Oh, nice.
On a Wednesday, I had a buddy coming out to San Diego. I was supposed to fly home here for 4th of July. This was 12 years ago or whatever, or 14 years ago. Jeez.
Time's flying.
I was supposed to come back for the 4th of July and flying out. My buddy was coming from New York to San Diego. So you got to change your flight. I'm coming out to San Diego. So I changed my flight by one night. So going out on a Wednesday, I was like, there's gonna be nothing open anyway. Even in San Diego, it's, July 1st or whatever. And so we go out and we find this one bar that's jammed, packed with people. And I think it was like spin the wheel, pay $5, spin the wheel, and whatever it lands on, you get that as a shot.
Nice.
And that's the night I met Carrie.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Moved her to Wilmington. She's now a physician. She just left Christiana Care as a family doc.
Sweet. Yeah, and good for her. I too had a similar experience. I was chasing the golf dream for a little bit, and I told Mary Kate, I was like, hey, I'm going to go work in Florida. She said, no.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, so good for us. We got good, strong women. Yeah.
Life's amazing how it works out. Sometimes you're just along for the ride.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So switching gears here a little bit. So we've been in real estate. Was real estate an interest? Like, where did this kind of like come from?
Yeah,
because I feel like everybody just kind of falls into real estate.
When you grow up in this, you're a product of your environment, right? You're a product of where you grew up. And for me, I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out of the military. I just knew, business was interesting to me. I know that if you're successful in business, you can have a big impact. And of course, I have my own ambitions and all that. But so I went to Wharton. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I didn't realize this, but at these top tier business schools, you kind of funnel into groups. And so there's like the investment banking group, right? And it's like, if you want to be an investment banker after business school, you go to New York. Like, you have to
finance bros. Yeah.
And they're
wear your sweet Patagonia vest.
Yeah. And they're the ones who didn't have to pay attention in school at all. And like, they're literally there for 2 years of partying and resting because they just came from 20-hour weeks getting crushed at Goldman Sachs or whatever as a peon. And then the Goldman tells them, you either get into the top 3 business school or you're not coming back. So they go and they get in and they spend 2 years chilling before they go back to the trading floor or whatever. So I hear. So I didn't want to go to New York. I just don't have a desire to live there. Then the other group is the management consultants, but those guys travel a lot. So like Monday morning or Sunday night, they fly out to wherever their client is, and then
Yeah.
they're back home for the weekend. And Carrie was like, well, the whole point you got out was so we could be together, not so we could travel. So like, yeah. And so real estate development had a great program there. There's the Zell Laurie Center. One of the wealthiest investors is Sam Zell. The real estate program at Wharton's named after him. The Zell Laurie Real Estate Center.
Sam Zell, Am I Being Too Subtle? That's the book.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I went. He did a speech. He did a speech while I was at school, and it was great. He gave the speech, and it was this big crowd in the big auditorium. And at the end, he took questions. And he's kind of a curmudgeon-y guy, really smart. And this European guy gets up, and in this French accent, he's like, "Oh, like Mr. Dell, like, what do you think about the French market, like by the French Riviera?" And he's like, yeah, he's like, I like France. I like Europe. I vacation there. It's great. Europe's okay, but the problem is you guys don't fucking make anything. So I'm not investing there. It's like amazing how he like completely like this poor guy was like, very put together, European in the class. But Sam Zell was very matter of fact about,
Yes.
He's like, I'm not investing in Europe. You guys don't make anything anymore. I was like, wow, tough. But yeah, so it just, with the available options in the school, I started taking real estate classes, really started liking it and realizing that it was something that I could translate back to my hometown. This is something that I could do with all the amazing housing stock and the history that we have in the city.
Yeah.
People don't realize this, but John Dickinson is buried in West Center City. Thomas Garrett, the great conductor of the Underground Railroad, who worked with Harriet Tubman, Friendship Meeting House in Quaker Hill. He's buried there. His whole career was there. There's actually a Netflix special about Harriet Tubman right now, almost like runs through Quaker Hill, Wilmington, Delaware. George Washington slept there. So like this just incredible history, but the neighborhood should be, supportive of it. And right now it's just, it's an area that needs to be stabilized, and guys with a real estate skill set can help make a difference.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. So you come back, did you just go straight to BPG?
So I didn't know what to do coming to Wilmington with a Wharton degree in my background to get a job. I didn't know. And I talked to a guy at the Wharton School, president of Real Estate Club, and he's like, there's really two paths you can go. You can either go the broker route and, sell, and, you start small and you build a book and you get experience and exposure to market, or you can go work for a developer and learn how to build things, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have a choice. You can either go to New York and go work for Heinz or one of these big companies, and you'll be like, working on a skyscraper, but you'll be the bathroom guy. Or you go to a smaller market and work for a regional developer, and you could be the full project guy on the development side. So I said, I think I want to do the development route. And then I didn't know what to do coming to Wilmington. And like many people, there's a guy who was dedicated to helping veterans find jobs. And I got connected with him, and he's like, so where do you want to live? And I said, I know this sounds crazy, but Wilmington, Delaware. And he's like, oh, do you know Chris Buccini? I was like, well, I don't know him, but I know that his company is, redeveloping Wilmington. So I said, oh, I'll make an introduction. And so he made the introduction to Chris. And then when I told Chris what I want to do, he's like, you're probably going to be working for Rob. So then I met Rob Buccini. And I think I was their first hire since the 2009 crash. Mm-hmm. So I was very fortunate, but they gave me a chance, and Rob took me under his wing, and I became kind of Rob's right-hand guy for a solid 7 years, and very thankful. I mean, what an incredible family the Buccinis are, and incredible company. Those guys are just, mentors and friends. And honestly, I'm happy to be a part of what they're doing, and now I'm happy to be supporting alongside them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And those guys, like, I'm impressed every single time that I get a chance to talk to Rob. And I'm so impressed. Like, I'll tell these guys, like, sometimes, I'll shoot him a text at like Friday at 4:30 in the afternoon, and he hits me right back. I'm like, this guy's
hardest working guy. Him and his brother are just hardest working people around. And Wilmington is was the guy. I mean, there was a T-shirt circulating around BPG at one point. It had Mr. Hair, Mike Hair, who's another mentor and good friend, and just one of the best dudes around. coined the phrase Robco, which was Rob Buccini and me. And I actually couldn't talk to the rest of the company about the projects I was doing because the projects I were doing were like knowingly losing money, but they were part of the cause to like renovate the city.
Yeah.
So I'd walk into offices to get, the accounting to sign off on this or finance to sign off on this. And they'd be like, what are you doing with this? And then I was like, well, I'm doing it for the principal of the company. I think I'm supposed to be doing this. And they're like, what are you doing? And I remember it was, and I was in Carl Wagner, another good friend, and he was the chief investment officer for Buccini. I remember walking in there and saying like, oh, like Rob told me to come talk to you about this. And he's like, why are we doing this? I was like, oh, it's because the mayor wants to do it. And he's like, Rob, I'm the chief investment officer. This is the office that doesn't care what the mayor wants. This is the office that cares about like making sure that we get some revenue into this company. So it's just very funny. But Mike Hare coined the term Robco, and it has nothing to do with me. Rob Snowberger, Rob Buccini working together. But the point is that Rob Buccini would be investing in projects purposely knowing losing money because that wasn't the point. The point was that this place needs renovation, it needs restaurants, it needs things to do. And so they really have taken a real leadership position. Like you said, it's amazing to work with them.
Yeah. And you're going to be sort of deal. You want to talk about your experiences, stuff you've done and stuff we got, coming up on the horizon here.
Yeah. So leaving BPG, I was very fortunate to meet my current partners, starting off first with Rob Herrera, who's been on the podcast, I believe.
Former guest.
And Steve Weathers. Our company started basically when, I was working for Rob Buccini, finding new projects to do, and found this property on 9th Street. And brought it to him and said, oh, here's another one. And Rob just kind of looked at me and he was like, dude, I wish there was someone else doing this stuff. Like, I'm sick of BPG doing everything. We want to focus on big things. Our company's built that way. I wish there was someone out there doing the smaller stuff. So I kind of said, could I do it and still work for you? Like, I'll go get investors and do it. And he's like, yeah. So he encourages you to invest, which is great. And I went to the owner of the property, which was the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Why did they own it? Because the developer who had owned it first went under, and so the bank got it, and then the bank who got it went under. So I was like, man, I'm really set up for success
property
here.
Yeah.
But the FDIC basically said, no, you can't buy that one. You got to buy the block, because it's a part of, we have this whole portfolio, and we're not just going to sell the one, we're going to sell the whole thing. So either take it all or don't. And it was much bigger than I was expecting. So I'd been talking to Rob Herrera, who owns the mill, in partnership with BPG, and Steve Weathers, who was the senior construction manager at Buccini Poland, and said, hey guys, like, I can't do this by myself, and we've all been talking about investing. Why don't you do it with me? And they said, yeah. So that's how we started 9th Street Development Company, was buying this block on 9th Street. And for the next 3-4 years, we were, investing in it, developing it, transforming it, and that's what launched our company. So it's been an amazing ride. We've had to not only do apartment renovations, but also create ground floor businesses like Gerard Craft and Cork. Fair Cafe was ours. Now it's Mike Day and Farmer and Cal Group. But we started Fair Cafe ourselves just to make sure that there was activation on the street. We did Blitzen in partnership with Dallas Shaw. So we've done a lot of really cool stuff on 9th Street. And now we have a new partner, Dave Vernier, and we're trying to do bigger, better things. But ultimately, our mission is downtown, West Center City, and Wilmington. And so these other things we're doing in Seaford and elsewhere essentially will keep our company healthy so that we can make those leaps of faith like Buccini Poland does, right? These neighborhoods that are maybe not the best, easiest investment. And that's why we're not fighting off tons of people to get the project. There's no one who wants the project, but we'll take it because maybe we've done something elsewhere that helps our company stay healthy.
Yeah, it's just badass. And like I tell people about like my experience. I was like, I feel like I've gotten a little bit, of like a master's in real estate development, just, kind of talking with you guys and like being on these calls and like just trying to hit the streets and just figure it out. Like, hey,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I love. Like, you've brought up the word partnership a ton of times. Like, it's not just one person. It's a whole team coming together and trying to figure out, hey, how can we do this? Not, hey, this can't be done. It's, hey, how can we do this?
No, and you hear, and so the Post, the restaurant that's going to open up 2 weeks, hopefully like July 12th will be open. That's our target date for either friends and family, but hopefully the general public on the 12th. But it's been a real breath of fresh air for me too, to work in the neighborhood where I grew up, to open this restaurant. I hope everyone's going to like it. I'm still shaky owning restaurants because you're only as good as your last meal there.
Correct.
And so it's just, I'm always like, well, how'd you like it? I'm not a veteran yet, like Dan Sheridan, my partner, who's been a chef for many years, very talented guy. But we've been very blessed to be in this neighborhood, working with you guys here in 40 Acres, and we've had a great experience working with the 40 Acres Neighborhood Association. Kelly Hughes has been amazing. We rightfully so, they care deeply about this neighborhood and have a high bar for things that are going to come in here. And our job is to show that we're going to be good neighbors and have a quality product. And so we're very thankful that we didn't really have a contesting against our liquor license. We weren't sure if we were going to expand all the way to the back or not, but we ended up talking, saying, hey, look, let's get open. Let's show that we're not going to be just looking to sling booze till 1 a.m. That's not the vibe we want to bring. So hopefully we can be good neighbors. Everyone come down and check us out, and and from there, if we get the folks to say they want to expand, then we got room in the back to grow. But it's been an amazing experience with this neighborhood.
I love that. Yeah. And I know that's one thing that you definitely want to talk about. And we talked about it briefly with the Rob Herrera podcast. Sometimes we run into, and this is what I always think is like hilarious. Like, sometimes we run into, NIMBYism. And for those of you out there listening, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
And like, the funny thing is like, this is our backyard.
I know.
Like, we live here,
Yeah.
and we want to, make this place, good. So
no, 100%. I guess the last thing I'll say, just because, I've been good point. I almost forgot to mention it, but Gibraltar has been the biggest NIMBYism experience in my life, and still is. It's amazing how dug in people get over something. Gibraltar, the old mansion. I was playing soccer as a YMCA kid across the street. It was covered in tarps and falling down way before the last owners owned it. It was before that. It's just, and it's mainly because there's such strong opinions. They don't agree with each other. They want to do different things, and they're willing to stand in the way of progress. And there's a certain degree of like, what are you doing? And that's where I'm really thankful for Mayor Przicki to step in and take care of just getting the exterior fixed up and looking nice. We're helping with it. We're helping do it. Shout out to Anchor Renovation. They're doing an amazing job, meticulously out there every day. The mayor was like, there was a guy, he spent all day sanding one window. I was like, well, that's what you're in for with Gibraltar.
Yeah.
But it is being done right. And, ultimately this neighborhood responded positively to what's going on there now. And so, I think there's, like you said, this is our neighborhood. You can't tell me that I shouldn't be touching that property. I grew up around that property. And so, having meetings with the neighborhood, having meetings with folks, let's get this done. Stop standing in the way.
Love that. And we're kind of getting close to our time here, wrapping up, and there's so many things we didn't, get a chance to talk about, and it is just like wild. Like it took us, until 50 minutes to get to Gibraltar. We didn't even touch on microchips. But
they're really hard, and the Asian countries are very good at producing them cheaply. It's almost impossible. Anyway, that's the point.
Yeah. But, there's so much, left to uncover with Rob Snowberger, and we're looking forward to hopefully having it back one day. Just wanted to kind of finish up here. We always like to, give a shout out, see, what the people like. So, Snowberger family, you guys have any like family weekly traditions, favorite restaurant, favorite place you guys like to support? Favorite activity you like to do? Park, walk around. I know we always see you guys out there.
Oh yeah, no, we love going to baseball. My son is playing baseball. He plays over at Wilmington Little League, which is now Loretta Walsh Fields over by Sally's. So we'll go out there to the Rockford Park softball field right there on Rockford Road, and you'll catch us out there. Either me helping my son with his game or playing family kickball out there. If you don't have, when your kids grow up a little bit, get a big kickball.
Yeah.
It's a sport you can play with your family because like it's real easy. And so I got my 2 girls and my son and my wife, and we can actually play a pretty legit like adults versus kids kickball game.
Nice.
That's like one of our favorite things. Yeah. And of course my favorite restaurant, Stitch House, Cubano sandwich and Snitches get Stitches double IPA. If I go to heaven, that's what I'll be eating constantly.
Nice. Yeah. Love Stitch House.
Shameless plug. And soon to be the post. So.
Yeah. And then Mary Kate had this one in here. I got to ask this one. So what is harder, going through buds or, dealing with the city of Wilmington for some approvals, fighting with the neighborhood, collaborating with the neighborhood sometimes. Yeah.
This is going to sound dopey response. Equal, but in 2 different ways. Buds is hard because it's an individual challenge. You have to dig down deep. You have a boat crew, you have teammates and all that, but ultimately the pressure that's inside your head during buds, training specifically, is like, can I make it? Can I make it? Can I make it? Don't quit. Don't let this trip you up. So it's a little more internal while you're working for teamwork. The approval thing takes an emotional toll because you have
big time.
You have a mission, and you think it's good. It's good. You also know you're looking at the numbers and you're like, why does everyone think I'm making millions of dollars? Like you're not. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a business, but it's like this. Everyone can see, but people have such strong opinions and they come after you, and so it's challenging for someone who wants to do good to be taking heavies like that. But at the end of the day, if you stick with it and you care, you can make a difference, and it's always worth it.
Yeah.
It's always worth it.
Yeah. We're dealing with our first little haters right now, which is taking on a little bit of emotional toll. We had a Reddit page and people are like, oh, the Trolley Trends group, they're buying up all the real estate just to leave it vacant. I was like, I got $0 in my bank account. And trust me, none of these properties are vacant.
The online thing is, allows people to sit behind their computer and talk trash. It's, if your heart's good and you're in it, your work will show it. And that's the exact opposite, I think, of Trolley Trends. You guys have made a huge impact, and these guys are also helping us with West Center City. So they're not just hanging out here. They're doing good things all over the map.
We're champions for the city of Wilmington. So last couple seconds here. Anything else you want to say?
I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who cared to watch this. Please come see us at the Post when we open up. Sorry it's taking so long, but financing post-COVID a restaurant has been very challenging, but we're so excited for it. So please come down and see us. Really appreciate the time, and have me back anytime. I'd love to join and keep doing what y'all are doing. You're doing good things.
Snowy, glad you're back in Wilmington doing big things. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. That was episode 49 with my guy Rob Snowberger. Love y'all.